In a crumbling apartment perched high above a narrow alleyway in a city that rarely slept, lived a little girl named Zaya and her mother. The building was old, its bricks weary from years of weather and time. Pipes groaned in the walls, and a persistent drip echoed in the bathroom sink, like a ticking clock that never ceased. Their apartment was small, just one bedroom, a kitchenette, and a window with cracked glass that offered a view of the distant city skyline. At night, the glowing towers beyond the horizon seemed like stars that had fallen to earth, and Zaya would lie in bed watching them shimmer, dreaming of lives she couldn't yet understand. Zaya's mother worked long hours cleaning offices on the other side of town. Her hands were rough and her eyes always tired, but she carried herself with quiet strength. On good weeks, they would have bread and rice and maybe even a few apples from the street vendor downstairs. On bad weeks, the cupboards stood bare, and Zaya would go to bed clutching her stomach, pretending it didn't ache. Her mother tried to shield her from the reality of their struggle, but Zaya was a child who noticed everything. Despite the hunger, the broken heater in winter, and the noise from the street that often robbed her of sleep, Zaya went to school every day. Her clothes were worn but clean. Her notebooks were filled with careful handwriting and small drawings in the margins. She sat in the front row and listened with eyes wide open, absorbing every word, every number, every idea like a dry sponge meeting water. Her teachers came to recognize the light in her, quiet, steady, burning with purpose. She was not the loudest or the fastest, but she was relentless. She borrowed books from the school library and read them under the flickering kitchen light, wrapped in a coat when the apartment grew too cold. She wrote essays with borrowed pencils, solved math problems in the margins of old newspapers, and filled her notebooks with questions about how the body worked, how bones healed, how hearts beat. Years passed in slow, determined steps. The hunger didn't disappear, but Zaya learned to carry it like a stone in her pocket. She learned to smile for her mother, to keep the spark alive in their home, even when the electricity flickered off. She studied harder. She grew. When high school arrived, Zaya took the long bus rides to a better school across the city, surrounded by students with far more than she had: backpacks stuffed with supplies, lunches with fresh fruit, homes with warmth and security. But Zaya never envied them. Instead, she watched and learned, filling the spaces between what she knew and what she needed to know. She found part-time work cleaning a local clinic after school. The hallways smelled of antiseptic and rubber gloves, and though she wasn't allowed in the patient areas, she studied the posters on the walls, memorized the names of bones and organs, watched the doctors as they passed in white coats like guardians of knowledge. She walked home late, tired and sore, but always with new facts swirling in her mind. College seemed impossible. The cost alone was enough to extinguish hope. But Zaya applied anyway, essays typed on borrowed computers, applications mailed with the last of her allowance. And when the acceptance came, with scholarships and aid that covered nearly everything, she cried alone in the stairwell so her mother wouldn't see the flood of emotion she could no longer contain. She studied medicine with the same ferocity she had studied spelling and fractions as a child. The lectures were harder, the textbooks heavier, the days longer. But Zaya had learned endurance from hunger, patience from cold nights, and discipline from her mother's silent sacrifices. She did not falter. Years unfolded like pages in a storybook she had once dreamed of. She graduated. She became a doctor. And when she returned not to the exact apartment, but to a clinic just a few blocks away, she was no longer the girl with empty pockets and aching dreams. She was a woman with purpose, wearing a white coat of her own. Her clinic was small and often crowded. It had chipped paint and aging equipment, but it was filled with warmth and hope. She treated the elderly who had no one else. She gave medicine to mothers who couldn't afford it, She stayed late for children with coughs and fevers and never turned anyone away. She listened more than she spoke because she knew what it meant to be voiceless. Zaya's mother came by sometimes, sitting in the corner with proud eyes and folded hands. Her face had softened, though her hands were still rough. Zaya had made sure she no longer had to work. She had made sure the fridge was always full. The city skyline still glittered at night, seen now through clean clinic windows. But Zaya no longer stared at it in longing. She had become her own light, burning steady, burning bright not just for herself, but for all the others still lying in bed with empty stomachs, dreaming of something more.